There's a fish. That's a big fish, Tal.
What's up, guys? This is Talon with TFC, and today we're going to be going over a tutorial on how to assemble one of these breakdown two-man frames, specifically from a shipped crate. Like if this frame right here, we're shipping out to California to the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission. But this goes for any other two-man breakdown frame for a Twin Pro or a Recon. So we're going to be talking about going over the basics of when you get your shipped crate in the boxes and what to expect with assembly, as well as just in general for anyone who picks up a local two-man frame on how to assemble and tear down their breakdown frames. So let's start with our shipped boxes and what to expect from that standpoint. So the main bulk of what you're going to be receiving is a crate. We're going to have everything packaged in boxes, wrapped to this crate. They will be labeled A, B, C, and D for the main frame parts, which will be the rear, the front, the top middle, and the bottom middle. Those pieces are going to be the bulk of your frame and what you're assembling with pins, as well as our frame components that will be in the shipping crate labeled A, B, C, and D. We will have Yeti cooler seats with this specific frame. Now this is a Twin Pro frame. Our Recon frames come with flip seats that are custom, so those will kind of change. But besides that, we will have our oar towers, leg locks, oars and oar blades, all of our straps, our anchor, as well as our rear storage bag and stripping basket. And if you order some additional components such as our transport wheel right here or any motor mounts as our rear motor mount and front motor mount. So a few things to be aware of once you get these main four frame components unboxed. The powder coat finish on all of our frame components, there's some wear and tear to the powder coat because there's some moving parts such as our front motor mount and fish finder accessory mount. There's a few moving parts that can cause some wear and tear on this powder coat finish, and that's perfectly normal. The powder coat is just for an aesthetic purpose and really stops the oxidization of the aluminum. Before I start assembling, this breakdown frame is a riveted sleeve system, which is meant to have a little bit of give and leeway to make it easier to get those frame components together. So it is perfectly normal for there to be a little bit of shake in those sleeves. The last major thing to keep in mind is this tool that we provide you with every boat, especially for a breakdown frame or any one of our other frames. This Allen wrench right here is used to tighten leg locks, oar towers, any part of assembling this. As well as just, when we sell every boat, we make sure everything is tight, but over time, riding on washboard roads, things could shake loose possibly. So you just want to make sure you always have this on hand, while you're on the river to make sure if you got to tighten any oar towers or any, frame components such as that.
Okay, so now that we got the four main components separated, let's talk about the back first. So we've got the rear or the stern. The best way to do this is to lay this up on end. It'll help let gravity do the work. You'll notice that you'll have your anchor rope will already be attached. You'll have a pulley attached. We've got it designed so it sits up pretty nice and flat. There will be a little bit of a lean to it because of the rope and the accessories. That's perfectly normal. First thing that you want to do is we've got the bottom middle portion. Of the bottom middle portion, there is a top, a bottom, and a front and a back. So the way to determine that is the tie-in area, which is going to have the knots, is always going to be the bottom of your boat. So that's going to be automatically bottom, and it's going to go to the rear. So it will go together both directions, but the pins won't line up. So the best thing to do is find the bottom, and that's the rear. You're going to walk that in, and you're going to put that on first. So we've got it to the rear, the knots are to the bottom, and it slides right in. The next component, after we've got the middle bottom in, is the middle top component. The middle portion, the way to tell front to back, top to bottom on it, is that obviously your oar towers are going to be facing up, as well as your rod storage is going to be facing up. So that's how you tell where that's going to go. Your oar towers are going to be towards the rear, not towards the front, which puts your footrest right here in the middle towards the front. So it's got two contact points, two on the right and two on the left. You're just going to line those up. One important piece while you're doing this is the only time you're going to struggle is if you get it cockeyed where you get one side in deeper than the other. So try to put it in as flush and level as possible. and it makes your life a lot easier from putting it together. And wait until you hear that click. When you know that it's in, it's down. Now we want to pin the three components that are together, we want to pin those. So with all of your accessories, you're going to receive this zipper gear bag. All of your pins will be in it. They're 5/16" pins. You're going to take out 4 of those. And we're going to talk about the pinning because it does matter the direction it goes to ensure that we don't get any metal components against where the tubes are going to be. So we're going to come over here, and it doesn't matter if we go top or bottom, front or back first. But what we want to make sure of is in this area is where the tube is going to go, in this area here. So we don't want any of the pin components touching that tube. So we'll put this pin in, slide it in, and we'll put the keeper on top. As you can see, it could go down if you put it this way, and then it would be sitting on your tube. We want to avoid that. So we want to keep the keepers up. And we will move over to the bottom portion. We've got a hole right here. Again, we will come from the top down, and we will keep the keeper now to the inside, not the outside. So we have a nice clean surface where the tube is going to sit. And that's how we want to pin, so we'll repeat that on the opposite side. Okay. Now that we've got the rear and the top middle and the middle bottom assembled and pinned, we are going to go ahead and get the bow or the front of the boat put on. So we'll slide this out of the way. And we'll go ahead and put this down, back the direction that it's sitting where it needs to. And then we will slide the front to the rear. So this is the portion of the boat where we have actually 1, 2, 3 contact points on each side. So there's 6 portions that have to go together. So this is the only portion of this where you just want to take it nice and easy. And the easiest way to do this is find the parts that touch first. So that's going to be the outside and the outside. Those two have already started going together. The next portions that are going to touch will be all the way down here on the bottom. And as you can see, I've got some motion, some movement here in the middle. So we're going to use that to our advantage, and we're just going to keep sliding this together until that portion starts. So now that we've got the top and the bottom started, we can go ahead and let gravity help us. So what we can do is we can stand it back up on the rear. So we'll just pick this up, stand it back up, and now it's almost together, but I can tell what's going on. It's that third component. So if we walk around to the front, this is where your rod storage has to fit together. Make sure that your rod storage fits together and let gravity pull it down. We're ready to pin the bow to the rear of the boat. As we're getting ready to pin the front, this will stand up. Just be aware that the weight is leaning forward. So this can either be pinned while it's standing up. For safety reasons, you may want to lay it down and just put the pins in unless you've got somebody help you. So again, we are going to pin this, and we're going to make sure that this area where the tube is going to sit, we're going to keep that keeper out of there. So we're going to start here from the outside. We're going to pin it, and we have the keeper up here on top. So there's nothing going to touch the tube. We're now going to come down here. We're going to pin this. We'll go from the top to the bottom, slide it through, and I'm going to keep the keeper to the inside. Again, there's nothing going to touch the tube, so we want to make sure that we didn't compromise where that tube is going to sit. Come to the other side. We got the same situation. Again, sometimes you might get a pin that's a little bit snug. you just don't quite have it seated correctly. We've put these boats together at least 2 to 3 times to QC them to make sure that they go together. So if you've got it and it's a little snug, pull down, push on it, the pin will go through. Now that you're fully assembled, the only thing that's not on is the accessories and the oar towers. So we're gonna lay that down and it's time to get the tubes out.
All right, so now that you got your breakdown frame assembled, go ahead and grab your pontoons out of this pontoon storage bag, and we can begin to blow these up. Now, some things to pay attention when inflating these pontoons is these are a dual chamber bladder system. So you have one valve on the inside of the pontoons and one on the outside. You're going to want to inflate the inside valve right here very first. That is the inner tube that runs the whole length of the pontoon. So blow that one up first, then you can move on to the outside one. When it comes to inflating, you can either purchase barrel pumps from us, or if you have an electric pump that's larger, that works as well. They're D7 Lee field valves, so either will work. So as you can see, I just inflated the inner tube. You can actually see the outline of the inner tube within the pontoon. So that just is to make sure that you have that inner tube fully inflated before you start on the outside. When you're inflating these tubes, pressure is really a preference, and it depends on what you're floating. If you're trying to float skinnier water and have some more give to your pontoons, you might want less pressure in there. It's always just a good test to put your knee into it and make sure it doesn't crease. If it doesn't crease, you probably have enough pressure in those tubes. So once you have the tubes inflated, you're gonna need your straps now. You're gonna get 8 long and 8 medium straps. The longs are for the outside, the mediums are for the inside. Especially if you're assembling this by yourself and you're getting this frame on these tubes by yourself, the best way to do this is to go around to every single D-ring and go ahead and just loosely strap each one of these straps on every D-ring. That's gonna help you keep the frame on the pontoon as you're trying to get both tubes underneath the frame. So now that we went around and loosely strapped all of these straps to the D-rings, we're gonna go ahead and get this frame up on top of these pontoons. Now when you're doing this, urethane is a really slippery material, especially on this powder coat frame. So you're gonna wanna loosely strap the frame as you get the frame on the pontoons just to keep it on. So the best way to get these tubes underneath a frame, it's easier if you have 2 people, but if it's just one person, you're gonna wanna get this tube on the side of the frame and turn it to the inside so the inside's sticking up. You're gonna go ahead and lift that frame up so then you can roll this pontoon underneath. Just try to get it under there. You can adjust it a little bit later, but it's gonna wanna slip out. So you're gonna take these straps that you loosely attach to the pontoons and you're just gonna loosely get a few in there to make sure you can really hold the frame on so it doesn't slip out from underneath you. So it should stay now that we got those 2 on. I always like to go to the back and front of the inside and loosely strap them. Don't tighten them yet because you're gonna have to make a few adjustments. As you're strapping these, what I like to do is to make sure that this buckle is facing so I can press it with my thumb up so that I can take this strap, get it locked in, and then it allows me to hold that strap right there and get leverage to pull up on it. So now that I have it temporarily put on, I still have some loose straps over here, but I got enough, 2 straps on the outside, 2 straps on the inside, enough to hold it on. I'm gonna move to the other side and get the other pontoon underneath this frame. Just turn it to the inside, get to the other side, go ahead and roll that pontoon underneath. So I got this second pontoon under, but you can see how it's kind of crooked. A good way to fix that is whatever side it's crooked to, you can use those straps underneath. I'll come up to the front up here to show you a little bit better. But you can actually use these inside straps to help turn that pontoon out, just so that you can make sure you get all of your straps straight. And that's gonna help turn that a little bit like that. And we're gonna do the same thing on the back here. We'll get this one tight, bring the pontoon in and help turn that out. Just like that. So the way these tubes and frame is designed is for this top chafe right here. It's really designed for every part of the frame that's touching the tube is to fit inside that black top chafe. You can front load it or rear load it depending on, if you're doing an overnight trip and you're loading stuff in the back. So you just got to be aware of how you're strapping these pontoons to the frame and whether you're offsetting that weight or not. But you really should try to just center the weight on that top chafe. So now that we have the pontoons strapped to the assembled frame, we're going to move on to the oar towers and the cooler seats. Like I said, this is a Twin Pro frame, so that comes with the cooler seats, obviously. We do have the Recon frame that will come with our flip seats that will be separate from the frame. So those go in by, taking the seat. There's 2 T's that stick up, and you can actually fit those right in and use that 3/16 Allen wrench tool that we provide with every boat to tighten those flip seats in, and those just flip with the T's. So for this specific frame, we have the rear Yeti cooler seat. The way you can tell is it has this NRS seat on it, as well as our anchor rope lock right here that's attached to the side. That is very important to make sure that you put this one in the back so that you can actually use the anchor system. Center it. It fits perfectly right between our horizontals like that. Make sure you just have it centered as much as possible so that this rope can lock into the side of that rope lock. You're going to go ahead and grab that front Angler's Yeti cooler seat. You can hop in, make sure you have it centered, and slide it right in there. While our coolers are fit to be really tight in between these horizontals, we do like to rig our boats to flip. So we provide you with 4 extra straps where you can actually attach these handles on these Yeti coolers to the frame. So you're just going to go ahead and slide that down between that slot, come up and buckle it how you strapped the pontoon to the frame, and just make sure that's somewhat snug to keep that cooler in.
So now that we've got the seats in, we're strapped down, the pontoons are on, it's time to get ready to row. So the first thing we've got to do is get the oar towers in. They will come with your oar locks already in them. We need to determine right from left because there's a right from left. So the easiest way to determine that is you put them together and you want them facing away from each other slightly. If you have them the other direction, they'll kind of run into each other. That's not the direction, so that would be opposite. So put them so they're facing away, and it should be in your right hand is the right oar tower and your left hand is the left oar tower. So let's get them in. With your 3/16 Allen wrench, you'll take the right oar tower, drop it into the oar tower keeper, slide it down. Now, we will have already put a couple grooves in there because we've already had this set up to row. So you'll try to line those up and drop them straight down to where the Allen key, or the set screw rather, is going to hit those. And you are just going to feel, you'll be able to feel where that locks in, and you're going to want to tighten those up. So as you will notice, where this has been set up, this has got a slight angle kicked out to the outside of the boat. So that's intentional to give you space for the oars to row correctly. The other thing that you're going to want to do is once you get this in here and it's seated, you're going to want to give these Allen screws, they have small drill bits on the end of them, and it's a good idea to really get them in there and get those nice and snug so that they stay tight. Once you get them snugged in there, they typically do not come loose. Again, we'll repeat that on the opposite side. You've got your 2 grooves. We're going to put those in, line them up, drop them down. You'll be able to feel where those seat in the oar tower, and we're going to tighten those up. One last thing before we put the oars in them, I like to walk to the back of the boat and I like to take a peek at the angle of that oar tower and just kind of visually compare them and make sure that they are a similar angle. So if you've never put in a full-size set of oars, which you most likely have, but you're going to want to put the blade down into the oar lock, slide it down, and that gets you over the oar. We have a nice spot to tuck that in on the sides and it'll hold it in place. So all of our oars are going to come with donuts. It's important to tell you that the donut is not an oar right. It's not necessarily made to go over and tight to the oar lock. It can if you would like. If you want to row that way, make sure that your thumbs are not going to hit. There are also folks that don't use them at all that will overlap row. That's perfectly fine, where your hands are overlapping each other. It's a personal preference. Rowing is a very personal thing. So we just want you to know that the donuts are there to keep the oars in the boat. They're not necessarily there to act as oar rights.
All right, so now that we got the oar towers in and the rowing figured out, we're gonna move to the leg lock. So we already have pinned the fittings that the leg lock slide into. So you're just gonna take these leg locks, line them up with that, and you can see where the powder coat ends. You can even put your hand underneath the bottom to make sure it's flush on each side before you tighten. So just go ahead and make sure it's flush and lined up with that powder coat line. And once it is, so you're gonna take that same tool, go into those set screws, and tighten to make sure they're really set and tight. Now that leg locks are done, we're gonna move on to the anchor and anchor system. So in your same bag that all of your pins come in to put the frame together is going to be your carabiner and pulley for your anchor. That just attaches like so to your anchor. Now you can attach this to your rope to the back of the frame. So now that you got that carabiner attached to the Tornado anchor, on the pulley part, there's a button that you push down on right there, and that allows this whole thing to pivot and swivel. You're gonna take that rope, put in that slot, and just clamp that whole thing back on so that that pulley functions. Now that that's on, you can go ahead and take that extra rope, pull that up there, and slide it right in that rope lock that's on the side of your rower's Yeti cooler seat. Now that we got the main part of the frame, everything done, we're gonna move on to additional accessories and add-ons. So our storage bag right here just goes in the rear back here. There's a slot behind the rower seat, and that's where you can store gear with this storage bag. I put those buckles to the inside. It's kind of just a personal preference. You can put them to the outside. It just makes it easier to get to those straps so you can actually buckle this entire bag to the frame. And for these inside buckles on this storage bag with the cooler seat, there's a little open slot in this little part of the cooler that allows you to get those straps up and through so you're not fighting against the cooler and the pipe. If you got a rear motor mount for trolling motors or smaller gas motors, there's two fittings right here. They're cutoff crosses right here that the pipe slides into. Make sure that these set screws are out enough so that you're not hitting against the set screws as you're trying to get it in. And this whole motor mount, you can see the lines on the powder coat that kind of tells you how deep they go in. Again, you can make sure with your hand that it feels flush. It's all kind of got to go in at the same time. So right there, I can feel it's flush right there. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten those set screws. Make sure it's flush on that other side and tighten that side as well. Make sure you get those set screws really tight. So another accessory that we offer is this wheel mount. This can be used on any of our models. Specifically for this breakdown frame, this fitting right here is where your wheel mount goes into. That is kicked into the inside, and that's on purpose so that your frame can sit flush when you're building it from the ground up when it's broken down. So if you want to use this wheel with the anchor on, make sure you go ahead and put that anchor inside the bag so it's not in the way of getting that wheel in. You're gonna go ahead and lift the whole boat up, set that right in there in that fitting. Then you're gonna wanna go ahead and take your tool again and just give that set screw inside there a little twist. And that's just to prevent any twisting of that wheel as you're walking it down some, mountains or rocks or anything. Keeps that wheel straight. The great thing about our wheel is that the integrated rod storage is a great way to go ahead and pick that boat up, and then you can walk it wherever you need to. So for this front area with our integrated rod storage, we have two different options. First is a stripping basket, and that just goes on through these little holes. Slide it on, get that side started, And it just slides on just like this. Then it's Velcro up here that you can undo. Attaches right on. You have a nice place to store gear. It's a nice stripping basket. You can use it for a lot of different things. So your second option on something you can add to this front integrated rod storage area is the accessory mount. You can add, bow mount, deployable trolling motors. You can add fish finders. You can have both on it at the same time. It's just a great way to add stuff onto this diamond plate. So we have these fittings right here, and they just slide right onto these rod holders. So go ahead and get those lined up, and you can just evenly, lightly slide that all the way up till you get flush to those tips of those rod holders right there. And then again, you're going to take that same tool and just make sure to go ahead and tighten those set screws down so that that whole accessory rail is locked in there. If you do want this front mount accessory rail option, expect there to be some wear and tear on that powder coat just because of those set screws and sliding that mount up onto those rod holders. So now that you have the boat fully assembled, last thing I like to do is go ahead and take that zippable storage bag that your pins came in, and I like to go ahead and throw in that Allen wrench tool that tightens your whole boat. Keep that in there at all times. You can take some of the tear aid and that repair kit that comes with your Sotar tubes and throw it in here. I just like to put some necessary items that you might need on the river, and you can go ahead and just put that anywhere that's easy to access on the frame. With this boat being fully assembled, how we like to row it, there are some parts of this boat that can be adjusted. One part is this footrest right here. Depending on your height, your leg length, this can really be, with these set screws, loosened, moved up or down to find a comfortable position to put your feet so that when you're rowing, you're not hitting knees, you're not reaching out. And that's really per person, per height. If you find a specific location you like this, we recommend that you go ahead and just drill and pin this area right here on this fitting, like we have our front leg locks, to go ahead and just hold that position for your footrest. Another piece that's very adjustable are your oar towers. Like we said, we like to have this angle kicked out. We already have this fitting kicked out a little bit, but if you ever have longer oars, shorter oars, these are 8'6" oars with this Twin Pro right here. You can adjust the angle of these oar towers to kick out, to kick in. You can change the turn in these a little bit. So you really can adjust and customize the way this boat rows specifically to your preferences on oar length, your preferences on where those oars rest underneath your knees. So there's a lot of different adjustments that you can do if you have preferences on how you row and with your footrest. Now that you got your fully assembled 2-man breakdown Twin Pro or Recon hydro sleigh, you're ready to hit the water. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Jeremy. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.